Okay. So first, let me thank you for having me here at your conference. My name is Mathias Bauer. I work for Sun Microsystems. Okay, sorry. My name is Mathias Bauer. I work for Sun Microsystems, and I'm leading the OpenOffice.org writer team, not only at Sun Microsystems, but also in the OpenOffice.org community. A small remark. The project is called OpenOffice.org, and also the product. The reason is we don't have a worldwide trademark. We couldn't get a worldwide trademark for OpenOffice. And so we chose the name OpenOffice.org. Of course, when we are talking, we always talk about OpenOffice. It's easier to speak. And in writing, we very often use the abbreviation OOO. So I hope you bear with me if I mix these sometimes a little bit. So first, let me talk a little bit about our project and our community. The project was started in 2000 when the source code was released under the LGPL version 2. With our latest release, we now switched to the LGPL version 3. And the project always was meant as a platform-independent project. From the beginning, we had versions of OpenOffice for Windows, for Linux, and for Solaris. And also with our latest release, we now have a version for Mac OS X, a native support for the Mac OS X. Most of the infrastructure of the project is provided by Sun Microsystems, and especially we do all the release engineering. So all builds for OpenOffice you can download from our website in, meanwhile, 75 languages are done by Sun. Other companies or even individuals also provide builds. And so Sun also provides a different build. It's called StarOffice. It's a proprietary brand of OpenOffice. I will mention that later a little bit more. Yeah, as I already said, Sun is doing most of the infrastructure, and Sun is also doing most of the code contributions. We have round about 60 developers employed by Sun. And round about the same number of people are doing other work for OpenOffice, like quality assurance, release engineering, documentation, etc. But also some other companies have developers working on OpenOffice. I have named a few here, like Novell, Red Hat, IBM, and a Chinese company called Red Flag 2000. But there are more developers in smaller groups or even individual developers that work on OpenOffice occasionally. And we have a website with registered developers, and currently we have around about 900 registered developers working on the project. Many developers are not necessarily write code. Many of them do localizations. Except a few languages, most of the localization for OpenOffice is done by the community itself. And we have more than 100 native language projects that translate OpenOffice into different languages. Even languages for minorities with, let's say, not more than 1 million people in South Africa or in India or somewhere else. We even have versions like a Welsh or a Catalan version, so minorities are also supported by OpenOffice. We have a very active supporting community based on web forums and mailing lists where people just for fun, at least I expect it's fun, help others working with the product. And we also have paid support for companies from Sun Microsystems as well as from other companies, and we have all listed them on our website on the support page. A recent development for OpenOffice is that we now have extensions. You might know extensions from Firefox, I think you know. And we have done something comparable for OpenOffice, and the site providing these extensions is growing, and meanwhile we have more than 100 extensions ready for download. So while we are at downloads, how can we measure the success of OpenOffice? It's hard to get market share data because you have no licenses you can count. So what you have is downloads, and the download numbers for OpenOffice are pretty impressive, I think. We have, since the beginning of the project, more than 150 million downloads. And 1 month ago, we have started or released our new 3.0 version, and since then we have, even in this month, more than 10 million downloads, roughly 300 to 350,000 downloads per day. And this is only the download from the official download page. We have much more other different distribution channels. So OpenOffice is bundled in nearly every Linux distribution you can get, and also you can order OpenOffice on CD, and it's available as a portable version on USB sticks. Another interesting development, more and more PCs come pre-installed with OpenOffice or StarOffice from Sun, and especially the new net tops that are so popular nowadays have driven this pre-installation. If you buy a PC from ASUS, a net-top PC, you will get StarOffice pre-installed, for example. So back to the market share. As I said, getting market share data is not easy. So you can quite often read that Microsoft Office has a market share of 90% or even more. So I wonder, based on what numbers this is calculated. I don't know, but I think it doesn't matter, because we are in the beginning of a new development in the software. Many people that never have used a computer or never used Office software are entering this area, and this is a big opportunity. So if people say Microsoft has 90% of the current market, I say we target for the other 90%, those people that never have used a computer or Office software until now. And Forrester has stated that already in the last year in a nice quote I show to you here. So also analysts think that there will be a big uptake in software usage in the next years, and yes, all these people are still undecided. Yeah, but while download numbers tell us something about the usage in the private area and private users, we have much better numbers for the adoption of OpenOffice in big enterprises and in the public sector. In our wiki, we have tracked these numbers, and we list all larger deployments there. I have just shown a small excerpt of this page, and we have deployments currently up to, I think the biggest one is 250,000 seats. And I know a little bit more about other deployments that are currently evaluated or piloted, and I'm pretty confident that we will get much more and much bigger deployments in the near future. If you are interested, you can have a look on the web page that is listed at the bottom of this slide. But there is more. We also have offline distribution. Not every user has a broadband internet connection and can download 150 megabytes of software. So there is a big advantage that OpenOffice has that software with a license cost doesn't have. If you have OpenOffice, you can give it away to everybody else. So if you have a company, or if you are working on a government, you can give away copies of OpenOffice to everybody, your employees or your citizens or who else. And that makes it much easier to exchange document and data. And not surprisingly, this is very well received, especially in the emerging markets. And I have just collected some examples where some governments give away open office on media to interested people. And this is another distribution channel, like a little bit like guerrilla marketing. But so this all is a bright side, but there is also many reasons why open office still does not move forward in certain areas, especially in the enterprise market. I want to have a look on some of them and explain them to you. The first obstacle we face can be abbreviated by FUD. That means fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's a habit and it's a marketing technique. And the idea behind that is, if I have to choose between A and B, and I'm afraid of A, I think I choose B. So this is a technique or a habit where people don't think, but they just follow their entities. And in the 80s, we had the famous sentence, nobody ever has been fired for buying hardware from IBM. And now we have the same as a version 2.0 in the software market. Nobody will get fired for buying Microsoft software. So it's the safer bet for many people. But what they don't see there is the consequences that they might get by doing this. And so it's hard to get over this, to explain people why it might make sense to do something else. And you cannot argue against this habit because it's illogical by nature. So all you can do is building trust. And so over time, when other people have done it and have proven it worked for them, maybe this can build the trust we need. I have listed the URL of a study where people have done migration to open source deployments and have found that it worked for them and it saved them a lot of money. And it doesn't work always in that way, honestly speaking. But this is the stories we need. But there are more habits. Open office does not have license costs. That makes it easy to deploy it, because if you don't have to pay something up front, you can just start with it and later on decide if you want to invest money for what you have discovered in the meantime. So you can choose between investing money to save time or investing time to save money. But anyway, you have the choice. So it's absolutely clear, open source software does not mean, because it has no license cost, it does not cost anything. Of course, there's always something you have to pay for, something. But the question is how much and which costs are real and which are just felt or caused by habits. It's clear if you use software with a new user interface or with new workflows, that this will create maybe training costs for the users working with the software. Interestingly, when Microsoft Office was released in version 2007, they have changed the user interface radically. So meanwhile, we can say the training cost for switching from Microsoft Office, let's say 2003, to Microsoft Office 2007 will definitely be much larger than a switch from Microsoft Office 2003 to OpenOffice. I can tell you a little story. My 10-year-old son gets lessons in IT basics at school. And he also learned how to create little presentations and animations and graphics with PowerPoint. When he came back home, he was very eager to show me what he had learned. So I got to the computer, started OpenOffice Impress, and he showed me what he had learned. In the school, he used PowerPoint. At home, he used Impress, and you didn't notice the difference. I don't think that he would have had the same success if I had a Microsoft Office 2007 at home. He had to learn a little bit more. So, yes, there are differences. You will have some trainings needed, and it depends on how you manage your change, how much it will cost you. But there are many, many examples that if the change management is good, that means users are involved early, that it's a very good relationship between cost and result. Another important point is if you have used Microsoft Office for a long time, you have a lot of software running in the back office, in the background. And a famous example is content management. This is something we know, and we are constantly working with other vendors to get better support for other tools for OpenOffice. And just taken as an example, the content management systems. Here are a number of content management systems that already support OpenOffice or where it is currently worked on support. So you can see SharePoint and Alfresco. That is very popular. It's growing nowadays, and there's also a content management standard developed, and this will also be supported from OpenOffice. The biggest obstacle for adoption of OpenOffice is file formats. File formats, yeah, you all know the famous doc and XLS, etc. files. And when you switch from Microsoft Office to OpenOffice, you always would say, what about my documents? Our history for supporting Microsoft Office goes back to the very early days of Star Writer and Star Office, and it goes back to the early 90s. Yeah, really, we have started in the early 90s with Star Writer. In 1995, we have released our first version of Star Office that later became the basis for OpenOffice.org in 2000. And we always had Microsoft import and export filters, and we have very, very big experience, and so our filters are quite good. But they are not perfect. They never will be perfect, to be honest. There will always be some layout subtleties or some missing features that prevent a file getting transferred from one format to the other. So it all comes down to what we call interoperability. Interoperability currently always was our duty. And so we thought about what can we do to get out of this trap. It's like Sisyphus work. We always roll down the baldy hill, and when we think we're done, then there's the next version of Microsoft Office. So interoperability, as we think, should be something that all vendors of software should work on and support. And the way to achieve that is have a standard that is supported by everybody. And to put it in one single sentence, we think that an open standard will free the documents and prevent a user lock-in caused by proprietary document formats. It is not a cure for every disease, but it's the basis where competition can improve and innovate. And there are numerous examples in other areas of software and even outside of software that show that standards are a good thing, and standards help to create competition and to stay interoperable. Hard word. Besides the technical side, there is also the user side, and Tim Bray, a very famous member of Sun Microsystems, had put this very nicely. If you have an open standard that is supported by more than one product, the document can be used with any product that supports that standard. So in fact, now the document is owned by the user and no longer by the application that created it. And this is very important, I think, especially for governments, that might be interested in providing data to many people and keeping it intact and usable for maybe many years. That's exactly what standards are made for. So, besides OpenOffice, also a considerable amount of work in our project is donated to the open document format. We started with that some years ago, and we created a technical committee at OASIS. OASIS is a well-respected standards body, and the charter we gave us for this is based on what we think the stakeholders we have in mind will need. So first of all, the format we have created is XML based to make it machine readable as well as human readable. So binary formats, of course, are pretty much good in being read by machines, but it's very hard to make it readable by humans. XML is a good compromise and is so a good idea for a standards file format. Another very interesting and we think crucial point is that if a format describes something, it should always get the same representation, regardless if it's in a spreadsheet document, a text document, or elsewhere. So if you have text, the representation in the file format always should look the same. That makes it much easier to process the documents and to implement the standard. So if you have, if you wanted to create a tool that is able to read all kinds of ODF documents, text documents, spreadsheet documents, and presentation documents, you only need one module to process text, because the representation of the file format is the same in every application file. We also thought it's necessary that existing tools like transformations, XSLT, etc., should be able to process the documents pretty easy. So well-formedness of the file format is also a very important factor. We also wanted to have content of the document and its layout in separate units, so they can be processed independently from each other. That's something that has been proven a good idea in the web technology, while even if HTML is not good in doing this, people try to do it themselves by using CSS. I think you know that. And yeah, so separation between content and layout is, in our opinion, is good to make the format easily accessible. And also very important, we tried to reuse existing standards as much as possible. So if there is something in our document that is already handled by an existing standard, we try to reuse that. And some standards, for example, that you can find in ODF are Dublin Core for metadata, RDF for metadata, SVG, Access LFO, and some more. The reason is that if you have some tools or knowledge that builds upon these known standards, it's easier for you to work with ODF. So this is not an OpenOffice thing, it's much more. From the beginning, we had many other software vendors or even people outside of the software business in our committee. And the whole development of the standard was very open and careful. Everything was discussed and decided on public readable mailing lists. And even individual members are allowed. This is a special thing at OASIS. OASIS allows individual members to join such a committee if they can afford the fee, of course. And it was also possible to comment it in the public. And in difference to another well-known standard these days, the whole process wasn't rushed. It took several months to get the first version out. And later on, this standard was handed over to ISO, and it was approved as an ISO standard. And we have planned to do the same with future improved versions of ODF. Yeah, so as I said, there have been several other software vendors that have participated in the development of the standard. And so, not surprisingly, you can also see that other applications already use ODF. Of course, OpenOffice and StarOffice, the commercial brand from Sun, and IBM Symphony, and K-Office, maybe known, and all major web-based Office versions. And I will explain that later. You can also use ODF nowadays with Microsoft Office. And we see our message getting through. Here's a quote from somebody who is very well known nowadays. I think it was last year when he said that. Barack Obama, the next president of the United States, said he will put government data online in universally accessible formats. And I think it will be very interesting to see that happen. So, very interesting. As I said, this openness and this easy adoption and maybe also the easy proliferation of the ODF and OpenOffice makes it pretty good for the public sector, for governments. And so not very surprisingly, many governmental instances have standardized on ODF. I have a list here. Not every government listed here also uses OpenOffice. Many of them do, but it's not necessarily so. And for example, FedEx in Belgium is still using Microsoft Office, but they use ODF. One of the biggest deployments is South Africa, that just have started, and they have made it mandatory to use open source and open standard in every instance of their government. This is also, meanwhile, recognized by analysts. Here's a quote from Gartner that, in my opinion, is known not to be very Microsoft unfriendly. And Gartner thinks that by 2010, ODF document exchange will be required by 50% of government organizations with a probability of 70%. So I'm not very good in statistics. I don't know how good a probability of 70% is. And I also don't know how the number would look if I say, can you give me a higher probability? But I think there is something going on. And this is, it's a global movement, meanwhile, especially in the emerging markets. So, not very surprisingly, Microsoft has changed its position to ODF. I think you all might have heard about the so-called OOXML ISO standard that has been pretty much rushed through ECMA and got some ISO rubber stamping on top of it. Microsoft first has realized that open standards is a movement, and so other companies might have thought, okay, then we join the standard. And in fact, when we started with ODF, we have invited Microsoft explicitly. Please join our committee. We want your input. We want to have a common format. But they declined to work with us and with IBM, with all the other companies that have contributed to ODF. Now, as open standards have get so much speed, Microsoft decided, okay, let's make our own standard. Because the nice thing on standards is that you can choose between so much of them. Unfortunately, while the standard was made, they had to do some changes, at least some changes, to get it through the process at all. At the end, they have what they call a standard that is not even supported by themselves. Not even Microsoft Office is supporting their own standard at the moment. That's something that they admit. So it seems that they also don't think that they can change that pretty fast. So for the time being, they have changed their position to ODF and say that they will support ODF in the next service update for Microsoft Office, or in one of the next. One of the technical officers from Microsoft has said ODF has clearly won. We don't know what this means. Because Microsoft has a large history in dealing with standards. I don't know if you know this one. It's a pretty famous quote that was done in the internet many years ago. So until now, the position from Microsoft to standards was at least ignoring it. Honestly speaking, I really hope that we can work together on ODF. There is a Microsoft representative in the TC, and last week I read some comments from him, and I was very pleased because they were constructive, and we really hope this will go on that way, but we never know. We never wanted to create ODF to place it against someone. We really wanted to have a standard as a basis for competition. So if we finally will get that, it's the best we can have, and it's best for the users we can get. So as I said, Microsoft Office is announced to support ODF in one of the next service updates. For the time being, Sun has created a plugin that can be used with every Microsoft Office version since 2000 to read and write ODF documents. It's based on open office code, so the quality of this plugin is the same as the quality of our filters. As we also continue to work on our filters, we also continue to work on the plugin. This plugin, for example, is used in Belgium. It was listed on the slide before, where I listed some deployments in the public sector. Yeah, here's another quote from the German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier. Frank-Walter Steinmeier also emphasizes on the information technology and how fast it emerges, and the worldwide information exchange, and that ODF is a good way to make that happen. And you always see ODF there, and currently the most important application supporting ODF is OpenOffice, that's clear. But we all know that there are already other applications supporting it, and there will be more, I think. And there is a so-called ODF Alliance, where meanwhile more than 500 members of more than 50 countries have joined. I've listed some of them here. So this is another proof that this is a global movement, and the emphasis of the ODF Alliance is the public sector. So companies and governmental instances have joined in this alliance. And as I said, ODF and OpenOffice currently are a good combination, but in future there might be other choices. The OpenOffice project has created a new sub-project called the ODF Toolkit. We have created a module that enables other applications to work with ODF documents without having the whole OpenOffice installed. This is not an application, it's more a toolkit where you can use parts of it and create your own applications, or just processing of documents. The ODF Toolkit can be used with Java or C# language, And the community of this project is very active, and very many developers have already joined this project and contributed code to it. And due to this success, we have taken that to the next level. So at the 8th conference of OpenOffice.org, that was last week in Beijing, Sun, Microsystems, and IBM announced a commonly founded project, odftoolkit.org, that now has been moved outside of the OpenOffice project, where we have contributed our ODF toolkit from OpenOffice, and there are already some other tools for processing and validating ODF documents. And this altogether is an offering to the worldwide community interested in ODF to create common applications, processing, toolsets, etc. The license of this project is the Apache license. And we hope and we expect that this project will foster the adoption of ODF even more, and in return also have some good influence on OpenOffice. So let me just summarize in one sentence. I think open source is a great thing, free software is a great thing, but then at least in the Office market, it needs open standards to prosper. And I hope that this is my message, and I could explain it to you. And I couldn't talk much about the details. So if you have some interest, I think you can find me working around here after my presentation and one of the next breaks. Yeah, and thanks for listening.